At first, people thought this was another sudden act of violence, another breaking news headline, another tragedy people would struggle to understand. But according to reports, investigators now believe this case may have been building quietly for months before the attack ever happened. And that changes the entire emotional weight of the story. Because authorities reportedly had previous concerns connected to one of the teenagers before the shooting. And according to reports, weapons had allegedly already been removed from the home at one point in 2025, which immediately raised a terrifying question. If warning signs already existed, how did this still happen? Authorities reportedly saw warning signs before the attack. At first, many people assumed the investigation would be straightforward, but investigators allegedly started uncovering details that painted a much darker picture. Because according to authorities, the deeper investigators looked into the suspect's alleged online activity, the more disturbing things reportedly became. And this is where the story starts taking a darker turn. Authorities now say the teenage suspects had allegedly been consuming extremist content online before the attack. But investigators reportedly believe this wasn't something that escalated overnight, which means the alleged radicalization may have been building quietly long before anyone realized how serious it had become. And after the attack, authorities reportedly discovered extremist writings connected to the teens. But that discovery only created even more questions, because investigators are now reportedly trying to reconstruct a timeline to understand when the escalation allegedly began and whether there were additional warning signs before the violence happened. Because cases like this rarely begin with violence. They usually begin quietly. Isolation, obsession, anger, and online spaces where dangerous ideas slowly become normalized over time. But according to investigators, the deeper they looked into this case, the more complicated the story reportedly became. Because investigators are now reportedly examining whether intervention could have happened earlier. And honestly, that may be the part of this story disturbing people the most. The possibility that warning signs may have already existed while people around the situation struggled to understand what they were actually seeing. Weapons reportedly removed before attack. And that single detail completely changed how many people viewed the case. Because suddenly, this no longer looked like something completely unpredictable. Now people were asking something much more unsettling. How dangerous had the situation already become before the attack happened? And according to reports, investigators are still examining digital evidence, online activity, and extremist writings connected to the case. But the deeper authorities reportedly dig into the timeline, the darker the investigation seems to become. And investigators now believe there may still be parts of the story the public hasn't fully seen yet. Because in many cases involving alleged online radicalization, the escalation often happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, until suddenly it becomes impossible to ignore. And now investigators are left trying to answer the same disturbing question everyone else is asking. If the warning signs were already there, could this tragedy have been prevented before it happened? And the deeper investigators reportedly look into the case, the darker it seems to become. If you want more investigative breakdowns like this, subscribe to the channel